Hi, guys, and welcome to our Mythcast. We're going to be talking about mages today. I'm going to start us off talking about some of the mechanical things that we have special for mages here. We have a lot of custom content for them. First, starting with the elemental mages, move to the necromancer, which is considered one of the mage classes, although they're a little different. And then after that, we're going to look at the role-playing aspects of them, what you can do in game, some special content we have, and finally, we're going to open it up for questions. So, actually, I'm Darian. We got one other person that's going to be talking with us,
Hi, I'm Lydia.
and I'm going to get started real quick so that we don't take too long on this because we're going to be going over 5 classes today. Our mage is the best ranged damage dealer in the game. There are 4 elemental variants that are going to be very similar. They have a few spells that are different. I can go over those real quick for you. Some of the things people don't know is that a lot of the spells that mages have are custom. The big ones for the elemental mages are going to be Fireball, Flame Strike, and Meteor Swarm. The 4 elemental variants of Geomancer, Aeromancer, Aquamancer, and Pyromancer do different things with these spells. And not to give all the information away, because I do want people to experiment a little bit, I will go over the Fireballs because those are the themed spells that make the most sense with the class. The Pyromancer's Fireball is going to do a special burn mechanic. So when you hit a target with it, it's going to keep burning. It's going to do maybe 3 ticks of damage that's true damage that's going to go through defenses because it doesn't matter what armor you have on. If you're on fire, you're on fire. The Geomancer throws a huge rock with their fireball, does a little bit of a stun. In PvP, that can slow people down. It's really good for monsters as well. The Aquamancer doesn't have a special feature, but has higher true damage. They're going to do the most damage of any of the mage classes. And the Aeromancer does my favorite thing, which is push the opponent away. Their fireball can actually push you into corners and keep you there. They're good at it. The other spells are going to do special things as well. Flame Strike for the Pyromancer is an AoE. The Meteor Swarm for all 4 of them is a huge AoE as well. So try those spells out, see what they do. It's something you can put into your roleplay as well. They're very thematic and they all look different as well. A few of the other spells that I don't see people using very often, but I want people to look into, are Magic Reflection and Arc Protection. Magic Reflect for mages literally reflects magic. So it'll do a few ticks of bouncing spells off of you when you have it on. Doesn't cost you anything like reactive armor or what's the other? Magic Reflection is the other. It doesn't cost anything like reactive armor does, but keep it up all the time. The other one, Arch Protection, actually gives mages more HP. They will have an extra like mana shield if they have that up. I don't see mages doing that very often, so please experiment with your spells because they do have a lot of special they could do. They have a lot of utility spells. It's not just damage dealing with these classes. They can summon animals with the summon animal spell. Best thing in there probably early on would be polar bears, grizzly bears, that kind of thing. They can really help you level up when you're having trouble in the beginning. And you can always summon horses moving forward. That's always going to be useful. Running at horse speed is going to be helpful no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
You actually, we talked about early on with them wanting to customize them a little more, letting them have different mounts,
Yeah.
which would have been really, really cool, but it doesn't serialize with the game as well as we want it to. It's something that we haven't been able to do. I would love to be able to do that in the future, be able to give more customization, but any of those things really hit the entire class. So every Geomancer would get, the same themed amount. Although that may be something we do in the future. The feats, looking at them, uh, they have a couple of feat taxes that you're always going to want to take. Meditative concentration is going to open the meditation skill. I
hmm
guess you could probably make it through without meditative concentration. If you have
Can,
enough. Hmm?
I was gonna say after could I ask a question because I don't play like mages as much, so I haven't really had a chance to really get familiarized with the different types. If I were like a new person and I was really interested in mage, would there be like an um easier element or a harder like or more intermediate?
That's a good question. And feel free to jump in with those because that's the kind of stuff that newbies are going to be asking. I don't think any of them are easier than the others of the 4 elemental mages. mostly because all of the things that theme them differently are additional. You could take all of that theming away, and they would still be completely good kits. They would still be completely good classes. Probably doing more damage is going to be the simplest and easiest. In situations where pushing a monster away doesn't do anything, doing extra damage to it would always help. So the Pyromancer or the Aquamancer may edge people out on that. Although the Aeromancer and Geomancer, their abilities to stun or push are the more important for PvP. Those are really important things that can't be replicated. There aren't any other ways to push someone around except I think maybe one of the archer abilities, and range stun is really, really, really hard to find in Myth. So those things are good, but more damage is probably going to be easier if that's what you're looking for.
Right.
Some of the other feats that are going to be really important for them are they have their own crafting feat, much how the clerics and druids do. There's I want to have this on record so that people can hear this before they get started. One of the resources that's used in the mage crafting is actual magery skill, and so sometimes you're going to be putting your experience into the crafting components for the mage gear, and sometimes you're going to be putting your magery into it. And it's going to be 3 skill no matter if it's 30 magery or 100 magery, it's still going to take 3 skill away. So my suggestion is to make a whole bunch of the mage gems that you need early on in your mage career.
Ah.
Yeah, when you get to 100 skill and you have to start making them, and then you have to skill up from 97 to 100 over and over and over, it will make you want to pull your hair out.
Yeah, that sounds. Yeah, I would go with that idea. That sounds much better.
I've seen people be super not happy about that, and I totally understand. All 4 of these classes are also going to get an improved familiar. Each of them gets their own elemental summon, like summon earth elemental, summon fire elemental in the mage book, but they also have an improved familiar, and it's going to do something different for each of them. I think the Aeromancer one pushes people away, the fire one can do some damage, the earth one I think rumbles as it walks and does damage. The water one does the coolest thing, which is that it makes clones of you, so that if you're in the middle of a fight, there's a whole bunch of you and people don't know which one to hit.
I really like the sound of that one. That one, that's very neat. And I think you could really use that in role play, like in a fun way, kind of more off than you would with others. Because that sounds just like water clones would be so, like if you had a spy or something like that. Oh, we have a question.
Oh, already.
From Kira. And it's, which elemental mage is the best, and why is it the Aquamancer? Let's hear about why the Aquamancer is the best. And do you think the Aquamancer is the best, Darian? I know personally, someone in here does.
Well, no, and that's a good thing. Like, that's the Myth idea of balance is to make it so that everyone has their own completely valid idea as to why this is the best option.
Exactly. It's whatever tickles your fancy. And, you know, Mabel. And it has a lot to do with, like, you know, I always love playing the ranger or, you know, the druid, something that has usually an animal companion. And then you also have that other person who likes to play the warrior or the paladin and have swords and wrestle. And then you have your mage. Mabel prefers, I think, the fire mage right now, I would say.
Yeah, Mabel's probably barking for that one. I will say, though, that a well-played mage is going to be... they're going to have more of the Batman style than anything else. A well-played mage can do a whole lot of things. You have to put a lot of time into this class to make them really stand out, but they are very good if you've put that time into them. So, for example, mages can't naturally wear any armor, not leather or anything. But if you find a piece of armor through luck hunting or something like that, or I guess runic crafting, that has the mage armor property on it, a mage can equip it. Now, I don't think mage armor ever shows up on plate mail. You wouldn't be able to wear it without the plate mail feat, so before anybody gets the idea, unfortunately that doesn't work. But up to chainmail... Yeah, I know everybody wants it, but they can wear chainmail, which is still very defensive and very good. Speaking to their defenses, they also get the elemental resistance feat, which druids and a couple other classes get as well. With 100 magic resistance and the elemental resistance feat, they're going to have 65 in every elemental resistance, whether they're wearing gear or not. So instead of having a 0 default resistance in like fire, cold, I guess, energy and poison, it's 65. And the mages actually do fit those specific types, with Geomancer being physical and Necromancer being poison. The others make sense. And to speak a little bit more about that, mages can use weapons. They don't have the skills to back them up, except for a little bit of macing, I think, maybe a little macing and a little fencing. But they can use mage weapons, which can be found on monsters or crafted, and they have the opportunity to wield those with very high magery skill. If you get hit, you're pretty much going to crumple like a house of cards, but you can be an effective melee combatant as a mage if you're using a mage weapon. So they have a ton of potential, but you're going to have to work to get them pigeonholed into whatever style of play you want to do. And that's why like they're my favorite class. I personally play mine as a summoner because I like to I have a lot of faster casting and faster casting recovery, and I just throw a ton of summons out when I'm fighting. So instead of putting all of my all of my mana into big meteor swarm type spells, I'll throw up a fire elemental. And so that's a second HP bar, and it's also a second damage source. So that helps a lot with PVM. And if you think about, if you really go through the tools that the mages have, they're going to be able to have different strategies like that, because I bet a lot of people who are listening to this have either never played a mage that way or never even thought to do it that way. They have an entirely different way of playing things. There is one more little thing that I want to mention for them, and that is that the elemental mages have 3 special command spells that they can do. There used to be 4. One got killed off for Meteor Swarm long ago, but they're mage spell A, B, and C. A is a melee attack, which is not super great. B is a chain gun kind of magic arrow that is incredible. And well, hold on, let me preface that by saying incredible in PVM. It's incredible against monsters, but if you try to use it in a fight against players, it's very, very nerfed down. So, which is a good thing because it has infinite range. For example, you can cast it on something and run away, and it'll keep proccing the entire time. It costs a lot of mana, but it's a good way to do a lot of damage really quick. And Mage Spell C is the elemental transformation that you see. Elemental of your element, so like an earth elemental or fire elemental or whatever. Eventually, we are going to hot off the presses news, we're going to put those 3 spells behind a feat, because the Mage Spell B itself is a feature that is worth a feat, but the other 2 aren't. So my idea is to bring the other 2 up, do some quality of life changes for Mage Spell C, for example, make it so you can toggle it on and off. And for A, maybe give it the special elemental property that your Fireball has. So if you do Mage Spell A as a Pyromancer, it'll do the fire effect. If you do it as an Aeromancer, it'll push people away. And then put those 3 behind a feat, because then they would be worth it. But right now, they pretty much only have one option to use in the special mage spells.
Okay. And regarding the mages, if I were, is there one of them that's much more better for support versus, you know, DPS? Or
the unfortunate thing is that mages have no extra healing. So mages are the worst healing class in the game. They don't have any feats to boost their healing. They don't have anything to boost their healing outside of the default healing skill that every class gets and the use of potions. That's it.
Right. They have a healing spell, though,
they
correct?
do not. They
they
are barred from the use of greater heal, or I think they can cure poison, so they get like arch cure. You can keep yourself from dying for that. But you're a glass cannon. You can do more damage than any other class. Maybe in theory, there are probably some builds that are going to throw those numbers off. Mages fold like a cheap suit if you can get close to them.
Okay, that's interesting.
Those 4 classes are very similar, but the other necromancer is different. We talked about it a little bit last time. It's got different skills. It's going to have poisoning. It's going to
Right.
have, I think, some stealth and also some fencing, because I think that goes with the poisoning. But it also has unique, has access to the necromancy skill, and has a couple of feats that go along with undead. So from the dark clerics, they get undead bond. Oh yes, yes, the cleric class necromancer. As Nickel points out, I have to specifically say that it's a cleric class. They have undead bond, which makes monsters not undead monsters not target necromancers, which is good. It's a good feat. Although I would caution people when they're playing a necromancer to remember that there is the stigma of they're normally evil characters. Necromancy itself, it can be hand waved, or you can find some philosophical way to say that, oh, the thing I'm doing isn't evil. But I mean, you can do that for anything. We don't talk about war in context of murder most of the time. We talk about it in context of like annexation or battle. You could look at necromancy that same way. That doesn't mean that anyone else is going to. And so you may be making some really good philosophical points while people are getting the firewood ready to burn you at the stake. So I want to caution people when they're taking something like Undead Bond that the game is going to show the undead don't see you, or they see you as one of their own, and other characters who may be
Right.
cognizant of that fact, you may out yourself as a necromancer that way.
Yeah, you have to be careful.
And I think that's good. I think it is
Definitely.
good that there are those things. We actually, if any of you guys are coming to us from Tirvan, we nerfed the necromancer a little bit. We took away the highest level of their summon undead because it was a little ridiculous. And I will say that the current design of summon undead is something that I don't particularly love. Necromancer may be on the docket eventually to be rebalanced, but when I say rebalanced, to give you guys a little idea of the philosophy behind it, I don't mean nerf them down to where they're useless. Most of the time, when I talk about a rebalance, it means actually putting a risk at something that has too much reward, or having some way that like additional ways that someone can deal with the situation. Because there are some things that necromancers can do that other classes can't. Uh, Building really strong summons that pretty much last forever is specifically only a necromancer thing. They can do it without having to, say, go back to a stable and pick up a drake, or having to tame something on the spot. So with that kind of real strong power comes a lot of the role play of, you might be hated by specific religions, specifically Aralcor, the sun goddess, probably not going to enjoy necromancers at all. And so those clerics already have some things that can deal with necromancers. We haven't seen it used a lot, but the holy water that clerics make can hit good or dark aligned characters. And they also can destroy necromancer summons. So if you ever are in that situation as a cleric, you can pretty much just splash holy water on anything with bad karma. Nickel says that monsters can also get messed up by them. Anything with bad karma can get taken down by holy water.
A very
I
nice
hate to,
meme.
to make it sound very, very complicated, but that's one of the things that we really like about this class system is that there's a lot to it. And even if classes look very similar, like even the elemental mages compared to each other, or necromancer and the elemental mages, they play entirely differently. Um, and I think that mage, more than any other class, can be a good graveyard for your free time. So if you have 100 or 200 hours to throw at a video game, you might want to play a mage, because it will continue to get better and better and better in a way that that shapeshifters and monks can't. The mage will continue to increase in power.
Okay. Wow. I was gonna say I'm learning a lot because I'm not one to usually play a mage, so
Very squishy, and they stay that way because
Mhm.
getting armor for them is a matter of luck, like literally luck. If the RNG doesn't love you,
Oh,
if
really?
you never find a piece of armor with mage armor
Mm.
on it, you may never have armor. Although our players are very nice and drop things like that in the community chests.
Yeah, we have a good community.
I actually did want to do a mage school, and to date this podcast episode, eventually there
Yeah.
may be a mage school. So if there is one in the time that you're listening to this in the future, it was intended now.
Yeah, it's going to be really it when you had time to work on it, it was going to
Well,
be really cool.
eventually we'll get
So,
back there. Right now we're doing sort of quests that are they're a little more god focused, which is good.
yeah.
To talk a little bit about that and a little bit about the role play, one of the things we decided early on was that there wasn't going to be much of a distinction. Although this is a thing that can't show up in game very often, but there's not that much of a distinction between arcane magic and divine magic like there would be in D&D. If you have a really good piece of armor that boosts magery and you give it to a cleric, it'll do the same thing than if you give it to a mage. As long as they can both equip it, it's going to boost their magical abilities, and that actually reflects the lore. Magic is a kind of physics. We take a science is magic that works sort of philosophy to magic. So if you want to use that in your role play, that's something that you can definitely do. Not all mages have to be old Poindextery guys with big mustaches and robes. Yeah,
Oh,
as much as I
aw.
love that character archetype, you can do basically anything as a mage. I think right now there's a pirate mage that's kind of neat.
Everyone loves pirates, and then with mages,
I mean,
what's not to
Aeromancer
love?
and Aquamancer seem like good choices for a pirate. So if you have a character archetype that you're thinking of doing, you can look at the four classical elements and think which one of these
Oh,
would work for it.
definitely.
I think the idea when we added crafting to all the classes, I loved the idea of a pyromancer smith that uses magic to melt his metal and stuff.
Oh, that is, yeah. Yeah. That is actually, someone needs to create that now because that's a
And
really
and I
cool
mean,
concept.
there's a lot of fun quality of life stuff with mages as well, in that they can teleport, so you don't have to go around rivers. Which, I mean,
Hmm.
I did take teleport
Right.
away from everybody, but as long as everybody's being nice with the map and not trying to like teleport into areas that they shouldn't be, I can give it back.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, so do you do you want to talk a little bit about the role play of them?
Um, yeah, I mean, we touched a little bit on, elements, and of course, see, this is kind of really obvious one, but elements to go with, your character's personality or like backstory. Um, Kira put a waterbender in the meme chat. Like that's exactly the way it is. Like just think about what the temperament of your character is, like what kind of tragedies he or she or they had. If someone is, pretty stubborn, pretty like angry, that kind of stuff, you might float towards, fire. And, if they're pretty, easygoing and like fun, you'd go with aqua. And really, the Aquamancer has some really great abilities to have fun with. Like all of them have some pretty fun spells that you could, make some pretty fun emotes with and work with. The Aquamancer and the water illusions being one of them. I just think there's so much you could do with each one versus each spell. Um, Kind of makes me want to try one, to be honest. But I was always scared of it because I'm more role play based and not mechanics based, and you have to have a little bit of experience or someone, I guess like Darian that has played one before that you can really ask
Well,
questions to.
there is that
Um,
stigma for this specific class that mages are complicated, that you
yeah.
you know you have to keep up with. If you see screenshots of any of the mage players, if you ever ask us for like pictures of our screen, you're gonna see like 20 spell icons all over
Okay.
everything, and it feels like they're a lot harder to play. But really, once you get your core, like your core group of spells that you're going to use, like I use the harm spell a lot because
Hmm.
it's cold elemental damage no matter what kind of mage you are. It does cold damage, and a lot of critters that are really high, sort of the high end monsters like dragons and drakes and things, they have very low cold resistance, and the mage specifically can hit a monster in its weakest resistance. Like if you know what you're hunting, you can use the spells that hit it for more damage. And so, you don't really have to do that. You can play the entire game throwing out your themed fireball or just using Mage Spell B or whatever you want to do. But,
Hmm.
you always have that ability to take it, a step up. I guess to keep going with the avatar metaphor, is to hit the avatar state, just start using everything. But I don't want people to think that they're a harder class to play, because really the big difference is going to be like very proficient, very experienced mages. You're not going to see a huge DPS difference. You're going to see a survivability difference. The thing that marks a
Okay.
really good mage is that they're going to be able to keep away from you. They're going to be able to flummox you if you have a strategy. They may not kill you outright, but they're going to minimize their weaknesses. So by luck
Right.
hunting armor, or by knowing like the gear that you wear, that kind of thing, it sort of goes back to the, I guess, the character archetype from D&D, that your mage needs to be outthinking the opponent, because
Right.
it's a hard fact to learn as a mage, and it is a rite of passage that you will all go through the first time you mouth off to an archer, because you really think that you've got things handled until you just see your HP bar drop like stone, because well,
And you're
that's
done.
there are some classes that are just hard counters. There's specifically a mage slayer class that is set up to eat these
Right.
people like breakfast. And you can fight back against that class, but you really have to know what you're doing.
And that's what makes the fun of it, because it takes some time to learn, but it's the progress and the journey of learning too that also
And
is
I
fun.
mean, we will talk about in the future some of the other classes, but I actually really like when people will take a class and play it a little off the spec of what it's supposed to be. So like you mentioned earlier, the personality traits
Yep.
that go along with the elements. And if you want further reading on that, D&D has races specifically set up for that. So they have they're called the Ganassi. So there's like fire, earth, air, water Ganassi, and I'm sure there's more now because I haven't played in several years. But they have personality traits that match up with their elements. But you could also play against that, because some of the most famous characters are characters that played against the role. So you could have an Aquamancer that's really turbulent, that's not peaceful, be like water and fill the vessel. They're more like, be like crashing waves and destroy the stone. You could play them in multiple ways. You don't have to feel constricted. But when you can theme your character around what their class can do, it becomes really cohesive, and those are really memorable characters.
Okay. Well, I think, is there anything else you'd like to explain before we open up the floor to questions, or to see if anyone else wants to talk about mages?
Say that eventually, when we have the other side of the clerics, that necromancers may not feel as oppressive as they do right now. I know a lot of people think they're a very, very strong class. And they are. I'm not going to say they're not. I would also say foresters are up there with that level of strength. Um, Classes that appear very strong like mages, they already have counters in the game. If you feel like you can't beat someone, there's probably a way set up for it. So you might need to do some out of game fact finding if it's a mechanical thing, but you also have tools in the game to learn about people. Animal lore was mentioned earlier by Nickel, talking about the resistances of creatures, but anatomy and keeping an eye on other people's gear and stuff, that can help you go a long way. But no, I'm happy to open it up to some questions, because I'm sure people have a couple of things to ask about. We did pretty good with questions last time.
Virgil says he strongly approves of my Canadian about.
The aboot.
Excellent. My boot. I don't say, I say about.
Okay, guys, does anybody have I mean, I can pick on her about her accent. I probably shouldn't, though, it's sounding the way I do. Does anybody have any questions
Right.
that they want to throw in?
Jeez. We are opening the floor to discussions.
Mage questions would be cool, but if you have questions about other classes or the game itself, feel free.
Mhm.
Arcane Gems asks Max. That's something I can talk about a little bit. And what's the other?
And then we also have Akira says, always check bank donation chests for mage armor. Yes. A lot of people are super generous in our community. We help each other out with our
Mage
game.
armor doesn't do a lot for other people. It doesn't. A fighter wearing mage armor, it's not going to give him any bonus. He's not going to be meditating anyway. So, it doesn't matter. People will throw them in the community chest so other people can use. It's unfortunate, but the fate of a lot of mage armor is to be broken by crafters when they try to enhance it. I suggest trying to enhance
Mhm.
things with spined leather or gold for the extra luck. But your mileage may vary. We can disagree on mage things. There are a few players that disagree with me on how to play them. Max asked about arcane gems, which is a loot item people pick up. We had to expand what dropped arcane gems. In the beginning of the game, it was pretty much just golem controllers, and so mages were like camping that one spawn, which was no fun. It wasn't compelling gameplay. It wasn't compelling roleplay. But it was a stopgap measure to get those into the game because they're very important for mages. So as a mage player, you need to anytime you see arcane gems drop on a creature, take them. If you find them in the
Mhm.
community chest, take them. If you see them on vendors and you can afford it, take them because you're going to need a lot of them to make.
And sell them for
Well,
people's
listen, I don't know
souls.
about your.
Sorry.
They're more important than souls. They're you
Oh,
sell your
wow.
soul for arcane gems. Um, they are your main resource for crafting. So all of the magecraft gear uses arcane gems as the base resource. That's what I was talking about earlier with the things that you put your skill into. When you take arcane enchantment,
Mhm.
I think is the name of the feat, it'll give you a crystal ball item with 20 uses on it. Now, arcane gems increase the uses, so you need to be constantly feeding your crystal ball arcane gems so it doesn't explode. And it also makes the two base craft items, which are experience gems and skill gems. And you use those by double clicking them and putting, I think it's 500 experience in and 3 skill. And as you go up, you require more of them to make the items. You also use arcane gems to make mage staff gems, because each mage is going to get if they build one, they can build a customizable mage staff. So there's a special system there for that. If you
Ooh.
make your mage gems and you have your mage staff, you can double click the gem and then click the staff, and it'll give you a list of
Mhm.
properties you can add to the staff. I think it's 5 properties you can put in, but you can get actually pretty cool items. You can make pretty good faster casting staves. My favorite thing is to make a mage weapon staff that requires 0 skill. So essentially, you'll have your 150 or whatever weapon skill when wielding the staff. You're not going to do a lot of damage, but it's going to be very hard to hit you. Which again, with
Mhm.
lack of defense, that's one of the only ways to keep yourself from being a blood splatter on the battlefield. Nickel brings up wands, which are another thing that I don't see people use very often, but you can
Haha.
make magic wands in game. I believe the process is to make a blank wand and then hold it and cast a spell, and that sets the spell to that wand. So you then have an item that casts that spell, which for mages may not seem like a big deal because you can cast the spell natively, so it's not a big deal, but it's useful for use magic device. So if you say make a wand of summon animal and give it to an assassin or a bard or a mage class that has used magic device feat, they'll be able to use that wand to cast that spell, which is pretty great.
That is pretty cool. We can create our own Hogwarts
Exactly.
now.
But
Perfect. And yeah, it is super cool. I actually didn't know we could
it's
do
not
that.
something I see
So
very often, but
this is why we have this Mythcast.
mages
This
do
is
become
great.
little crafters with that kind of stuff, and they'll be pretty good crafters. I think one of my big suggestions would be take up tailoring with a mage, because then you can work on your own. You can blow up your own armor.
Ah.
Oh goodness, Nickel says that he uses the wands a lot, which maybe I'll have to keep an eye on him and make sure. I don't know. Does anybody else have any questions that they want to ask?
Too many guns. Yeah.
I guess the wands can be used to do some pretty interesting macros as well. Now that I think about it, like
Mhm.
equipping and de-equipping things to use the spells. That would be pretty neat. The game you can make this game as complicated as you want. Really,
Right.
and I guess that's something I should say.
And that's why I like there's different answers because some people are like, "Oh, I wanna know this and this and this and this." That's why sometimes we're like, "Oh, okay. We'll tell you about that because some people, just really want the simple stuff, which is like me. I just want like the simple stuff. And then eventually, you know, as time goes on, you know, I'll learn the other stuff. But, you know, this is why I have Darian and everybody else because they're like, well, we need to tell people and we need to have tutorials
Well, I
about
don't
it.
want people to see the class and think that it's too complicated to play because it's really not.
Right.
It's a class that really rewards experimentation and really rewards you trying out different
Yeah.
things. But like I said before, you can pretty much go through your entire career as a mage casting 2 or 3 spells and summoning bears or whatever you want to do. Any style of mage play you want, you'll be an addition to a good party. And that's why I like the wands as well, because you can
Mm-hmm.
actually do things to give to other members of your party. Not every class really has that.
That is, like I said before, like I'm very impressed about that. If I make a mage, I'll definitely, you know, try. Would you be able to like make those wands and sell them on a vendor then?
You absolutely can.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't think you can make a wand of a spell you can't cast because you actually have to cast the spell to, and I don't think you can use the wand if it's a spell you can't cast either. Because, for example, if you somehow got a wand of greater heal, I still don't think the mage would be able to use it. Now, use magic device would, because the whole point of that feat is to be able to use things that you're not supposed to be able to. But mage is probably not.
Right. Okay.
This is going to be the
Neat.
easiest episode for me because I'm going to say 200 hours into mages, and
Yeah, that's why I let you speak because you know your mage
but
stuff.
it's definitely a class I think that people. Oh, and I guess we should make an announcement for that too. But it's definitely a class that I think people should take a look at. It's something that I'd like to see more of.
Yeah. Maybe we can make the announcement. Are we ready to make that announcement?
I mean, we can say a
Like, you
maybe.
know,
How about that? We'll be like, maybe this is a thing that might happen. So people
yeah.
like the most requested thing right now is more character slots. And while we're talking about
Yes.
people, picking up new classes and trying new things out, we are working on getting more character slots for people and figuring out exactly how we want to do that. I can give you the working theory. I can't promise this is exactly how it's going to go, but right now it looks like we're going to be giving people a third character slot and then having more
Yep.
of them as donation incentives so that if you want to have a ton of characters, way more than you could ever play,
Like 4 and
you
5.
I don't know why anybody would want 5 characters, but
That's so many characters. If you
we will be
do,
able to work something out because that cost is going to go to hosting for the website and the shard and stuff like that. So
yeah.
hopefully that'll be something we can do in the future. We're still looking into it, but that is something that was our most requested thing. So I wanted to let you guys know that we're listening.
Yep. We always listen.
Well, I'm glad that you guys are here for me to just, info dump a bunch of mage stuff on you, and I hope that makes them sound. I know it makes them sound complicated, but I promise if you sit down and you actually try to test drive one of the mages, they're super fun.
Yeah. So I'll put it this way then. If you are the type of person who's like pretty technical and loves to like figure out like different weird things about like, you know, their class and they don't want to like read about all of it. They don't want to hand it to them. It's kind of more an advanced one in that way whereas like you have to look into it more and you know you're gonna find something new every day and it's just a class that you really have to study, I guess you would say. Everything's not handed to you on a silver platter. You have to figure it out. If you're the type of person who really likes that in their role play in their classes, if they like guessing and like learning about neat stuff, I think the mage class would be for you. It's not clean cut. It's got a lot of deep, you know, spells and, you know, different ways to do things like the magic wand. I had no idea we had that. So, yeah, if you're someone who really wants to explore, the mage is a pretty good start. Um, I think we need
It's
more
certainly a
mages.
class that rewards experimentation, and some of the funniest like PvP situations I've seen have been because of mages. I watched a very well equipped group of people completely fold one time because a mage threw a wall of stone in between them and cut them off from each other, and they had no real way of dealing with it. Like
Mhm.
I've always wanted to, and I'm gonna say this on the podcast, and someone's finally gonna do it, and I'm gonna feel really bad. I've always really wanted to
Hee.
teleport into a battle, use the grab command to pull someone, and then teleport them on the other side of a river or something. Like completely remove someone from a battle.
Psych.
I just the mental image of that is super funny to me.
That would be yeah, and that's how you can really apply it to your role play also. Like that's something that can be done because in Ultima Online, our role play is pretty limited, not as limited as, a text-based like forum role play. But in some aspects it is that. And so like just little things like that, spells that you could actually like emote and do is like it makes that role play and that immersion just that much more like perfect. Just like, oh, I can like grab someone and actually move them. Like you can actually dot grab someone. You don't have to like OOC like type to the person on Discord like, hey, can you like follow me because I'm dragging you? Um
There's defenses
yeah.
against that kind of thing. The only reason mages are good at grabbing is because they don't have anything in their hands. Um, they're not using any weapons or anything. Another fun
Mhm.
use for them, another interesting use is that we have a lot of people that hunt treasure now, so they hunt treasure boxes and treasure chests. They come
Heck yes.
pre-built with fun traps to blow up on you, but mages can use telekinesis to open treasure boxes from several tiles away and avoid the traps. They can also use it to, open doors or things like that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. They're very
The
versatile.
idea is that you come to a situation and have enough arrows in your quiver that you can figure out a good way to come through it.
Yeah.
Mages are really, really good in groups. They're a good group class.
Mhm.
Okay, so do you guys have any class specific questions or myth specific questions you want to hit while we're still on the podcast?
Yeah, we can also decide now what we're gonna do next week. What do we wanna cover?
I mean, we did last time. We just said whoever says something first in chat's the ones we do,
Yeah. What do you want us to cover next? We did clerics last week. Ranger.
which would be like Ranger and Mage Slayer and all of those. That's fun. We can do those.
Yep. Awesome. Next weekend, we're going to be covering the Ranger
Looking
class.
forward to it. All right, guys. If we don't have any other questions, we're gonna wrap it up. Thanks for sitting with us. Our Mythcast. Do
Yeah.
you want to close this out?
I think so. Well, you stop the recording, but thank you again, everybody, for listening. And we will see you next week and during the week for Ranger class.
Thanks so much, guys.